For many years, the biggest fear of most people was to communicate and motivate and get people to like your brand, your services, and your products. Most people got it wrong, but those who did get it right were seen as leaders. And then the lockdown happened, and now everyone's communicating through different platforms and webinars. And the problem is, if they didn't learn to communicate effectively before, they're even worse now. And they lose audiences who just switch off. And then we went digital, and the possibilities are endless. As a speaker, you can reach any amount of thousands of people, and you can share your message, you can motivate them, and you can change lives. As an event organizer, the possibilities are endless as to how big you can make an event. You don't have to worry about logistics, you don't have to worry about language. You can create something that people can watch in their own time and attend in real time at the same time. As a corporate decision maker and as the owner of a business, you can create your message, you can create a niche, you can get the people from your industry to work with you and make your tribe defined very simply just by putting it online. And what kind of events can you create? You can have a web TV show that dominates your industry and sends your message and your brand across the globe. You can invite in the very best of the industry as your special guests every single day. You can sell through Zoom calls and look after your team the same way. You can also have webinars that unite everybody and tell them about your latest product launches. You can also step into a digital world. Imagine that you could be a digital version of yourself, speaking at a virtual conference. Virtual conferences will change the game. Not only can you speak in a big auditorium where people from their laptops are all present in front of you, but you can also have spin-off rooms, meeting rooms. You can display the latest products, and you can also have boardroom meetings at the same event. You could do them in real time, but also leave all the content available for people to comment on or review at a later date. And the cost is a fraction. You can go global from your laptop. These are the possibilities that are for you, whether you're a speaker, an event organizer, a small business, or a big decision maker. You need to think about the new version of you and how that will impact your brand and take your opportunities to a brand new level. The possibilities are endless now that we're completely digital. You can be online and offline, on stage and off stage, and your speaking ability will drive your message, drive your brand, and change the world. It's time for you to now learn to speak on stage. Hello and welcome to Speak on Stage. It's Dave Crane. Hello. You can tell it's Dave Crane because it says Dave Crane right there. Can you see that? And for some reason today I've got an orange head. I don't know why. Maybe the lights are too bright. Maybe I ate too many oranges yesterday. I'm not sure. Today's show was slightly earlier. I have to apologize, but I've got a really busy day of back-to-back stuff all the way through. As soon as I finish this show, and we broadcast it live as always, I've got a session with a room full of people. Now, I used to do training sessions on a Saturday anyway, where I'd get maybe 10, 20 people into a room, train them to be great speakers. And now it's all being done on Zoom. And it's really fascinating to see the difference. You might think, well, you can't quite work out everything, Dave. You can't quite see what people are doing. But when you understand exactly what the emotions are, and the body language, and the cadence of how somebody speaks, you understand whether they're going to be very effective or not on a stage, just by seeing them speaking on a screen. Plus also the nature of you're not a speaker anymore, you're a broadcaster. And if you're not capable of being a broadcaster, then you have to learn to be able to do that effectively. Otherwise, you're going to end up in a situation where people will hire you to speak at an event and you'll blow it out the water, but not in a good way. Because you'll be too much of this going on and too much of that going on, and you're not able to focus on the fact that you could be too big for the screen. This area here, he said, doing the world's most rubbish Macarena, is your platform, your stage, and your arena for engaging, entertaining, and driving your clients, your audiences, your customers, your friends, your family, whoever your audience is, to the next level of their consciousness of what they have to be doing after spending time with you. So if you talk to friends and family, that's fine. If you're talking to your staff, you want to make them so they feel motivated and feel good and want to do good stuff for the company. But if you're engaging people as a speaker, if you haven't taken them on a journey from hello, how are you, to oh my goodness, that was amazing, can't wait to put this into action and do something, thank you so much, then you really have missed your opportunity. So you've got to get all those skills, all those things, and put them through a tiny little hole, which is literally the camera at the front of here. He said, being really, really creepy with his fingers. Do it again, like that. And if you don't do it, you won't be getting any of this. That is the dollar bills, or as we've established on this show, it's actually just sanitizing your fingers because you've quite clearly got too much of this going on, and we're not going to be touching real cash anymore. It's all digital cash, and this is just cleaning your hands and then putting a mask on. I like the smell of that. You know when you used to smell pens? No. What about marker pens? No. Okay. Neither did I, by the way. So speak on stage slightly early today. We love your thoughts. We love your comments. Please make sure to tell me where you're coming from as well. That's always a pleasure and a delight to realize we've got friends from all around the world tuning in. By the way, you might not know, but the more that you say like and the more that you say comments, the more that people get to see the show. Let me explain. The algorithms for any live streaming means that if something's popular and people like it and they comment on it, then that tells the algorithm we should be sharing it with more people. So we want to really grow this community and get out to more people, because I think more people are in pain right now than any other time I can remember. And they really need to get the stuff that I'm sharing for free to improve their business, improve their personal life, and get them to a next level as far as their ability to cope with stuff. I've been watching news reports all day. All about, I never used to watch the news because I find it depressing, but I actually find it as a window in the world. But you've got to put a spin on it. And the amount of people who started off treating staying at home like a holiday from home, from work, so you just, hey, this is great, but now finding it really difficult. We'll be doing some stuff on that in future sessions, by the way. And if you've got a team that needs motivating, wherever they are, if they're scattered around the world or they're just near the office but not coming into the office, or even if you do come into the office with social distancing, I can do a bespoke session on redesigning your mindset and dealing with the challenges of reinventing yourself so you've got control for the future. Because the bottom line is, you feel isolated because you don't have control over things anymore. You know, if you go out, it's dangerous. If you connect with people, it's dangerous. But as human beings, we need society, we need people, we need to create a relationship. So for now, it has to be a digital one. That doesn't mean that you can't progress in your aims and your ambitions. Doesn't mean that you can't think about having something that allows you to feel there's a hobby or a side hustle or some new direction that you can take, which will occupy you and keep you busy during that time. I cover all of that, including the contract you made with society about how you would behave if society would behave for you, and how the fact that that's broken because you're now stuck in lockdown, and how you're having to reinvent that contract without anybody telling you there's a contract apart from me. Does that make sense? Anyway, if you've got a company or you've got a team that needs motivating, let me know. It's called The Brand New You. And everybody who attends that presentation also gets a hypnosis NLP audio to help them do future pacing and set their goals and their systems for the future. So then that starts becoming a reality. When you combine it with a vision board, it's incredibly effective. So as always, we're broadcasting live across lots of different places: LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, Twitter, and Instagram. Please feel free to subscribe and connect with me on all those different platforms so you never miss a trick, like today when I'm going early and some people might miss it. Today we're talking about something very special, and it's this. Talking about what clients want. What do your clients want? What is it that gets them to gravitate towards working with you and nobody else? If you understand that, then you can understand how clients stick with you in a pandemic, and they stick with you long after everybody stops playing with you. So we'll be covering a couple of different things. During today's session, today's show, we'll be talking about a couple of things, starting with this. First of all, the 5 things you can do to re-engage customers if you find that the pandemic has made them shy away because you're too expensive, or you had a supply problem, or they've got challenges with finances. We'll be covering a fair chunk of that in today's show. I'll also be looking at this, what clients actually want, and what you can do to improve our relationship. And of course, we'll be talking about how to be successful, fast-tracking it by going into the Industry Icon program. I'll be talking about that near the end a little bit later on. So as always, we give you some incredible insights. Going to start off by sharing with you something about what customers want, what customers don't want. Now, I've talked about this before because yesterday we were very specific about influencers, and the influencer education is going to continue in today's show. Let me explain why it's so important to talk about that. Right now, your influencers are people who put stuff out there. Now, I talk very specifically about what I do. I'm a speaker. I train people to speak online, offline, on stage, off stage. That's it. All the other bits and pieces aren't that relevant unless it helps you get what you want. So the people who come to this show will come here because I'm animated, because for some strange reason, Dave's always drinking out of his Christmas mug, but this is a prediction that we'll still be doing this at Christmas. And I said it now. At what time? I can't read my watch. I haven't checked it probably. So it's very important that you think about where this goes. Let me explain. You, at the moment, are probably in awe of all the huge influencers who put something out there and people go, wow, that's great, that's fantastic. But it doesn't mean that they're actually creating a relationship with anybody as a direct result of it, apart from the fact they show something shiny. So showing a shiny object, showing something cute, showing something funny, something insightful. Ooh, excuse me. Hey, didn't expect that to fall out. Something insightful. I'll move the microphone closer now. I burped. So, it's coming back again. Must be the coffee. But it's good coffee. Doesn't mean that people do any more than engage with your post. Now, that might be all you want if you've got plenty of money and no need to do anything else. But it does mean that people know who you are or have an interest in who you are and what you actually are selling or what you can actually help them with. So that's a challenge of many influencers, and I see it all the time in LinkedIn. I see it on many of the other platforms as well. Yeah, they get great engagement, but if somebody was to ask them, what do they do for a living? They go, I don't know, but I like their posts. Right, okay, well, here's the thing. We're in a digital world where the game is slightly different. So what I want to do now is share with you a couple of different ideas and share with you some insights into influencer marketing. But let's start off with a nice, shiny video. A shiny video that makes you go, ah. Ready for this?
Magic beans? I'll show you. And she threw the beans out the window. She sent Jack to his room without any supper. The next day, Jack looked out the window and saw an amazing sight. The magic beans had grown into a tall beanstalk that stretched into the sky. What was up there? Jack went outside and began.
So you've got the basic idea. It's a beautiful video of a puppet orange dragon, not one that looks like Barney, who I've always found beyond creepy. And that voice, nails down a chalkboard, not great. But that's the sort of video that when you place it, especially if you've got quite a few people who are actually following you, you will find incredible amounts of engagement with people going, oh yeah, I love it. And if you say something like, it doesn't matter how artificial intelligence is used, it still has an audience. Or robotics is making everybody's life much easier, even these cuties. Or something like that, you'll get a ton of people who turn around and say, yeah, you're absolutely right, that was beautiful. Please show us more stuff about dogs and cats and so on. Now that's perfectly valid, and there's no reason why you shouldn't have that, apart from the fact that if you're growing a brand, especially if you're a speaker, and you want to create a relationship with people, you can't do it using stuff like that. And right now, there are a ton of brands that used to sponsor influencers that are looking for a new way to create a new relationship with new influencers and reach their audience. But what is a relationship between influencers and audience and brands and their sponsorship? Let's take a look. And by the way, if you just join me, I'd love your comments. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. If you're a sponsor and you're wondering why don't people do more of this, share your advice, share the concepts that you think people should know. Speak on stage.
The misconception behind influencer marketing and working with influencers and brands is that a lot of people think that an influencer is just like sent a product over the mail, and that's not necessarily the case.
Hello, Natasha from Forbes here, and this week on the Business of Influence, we are going inside the world of influencer marketing. So we've already talked about how social media stars turn their influence into cash. But on the flip side of things, how are marketers and agencies leveraging influencers to promote their products and events?
I definitely think, being a social media influencer is a big deal, and I think a lot of people around the world, don't really have that platform to, be able to decide what's cool and what's not.
I don't know if I necessarily purchase products because they're endorsed by certain people, but I think if I see something like trending enough on social media, then I'm influenced to end up buying it.
I think if you know who you are and you're proud of who that is and you share it, then that becomes your personal brand. It's the things you like, it's the taste in food, it's the opinions on fashion or where you choose to travel. So that all in all becomes your personal brand, and it's almost like having a friend that you could connect with.
I think brands are choosing to work with influencers because they're smart. Influencers are really good at just connecting with their audiences, and if their product is really good and they love it, people will buy it. So brands are definitely smart to go out there and work with them.
One of the biggest shifts in marketing is the fact that a brand's message today doesn't have to come from the brand. So one of the bigger themes that we're seeing in the influencer marketing space is that brands are utilizing influencers not just for their audience, but also for their creativity.
Traditional marketing, as people kind of think about it, is much more one-sided, and then we're starting to move into, as an industry, very much that two-sided conversation piece.
It feels a lot more natural, it feels more authentic to the audience.
You can't just be thinking exposure anymore. There has to be that impact component, and there has to be that engagement piece that's so much more important.
For me, choosing the right partners, from the very beginning, I'd never done anything just for the money. So for me, it was always being super true to myself and to my style, and really picking the partners that could really work with me in the best way possible. Some of my favorite brands that I've been working with, somebody like Dior, and it's amazing because we've been doing so many different projects, like experiences, like shows, videos, and so many different kind of things.
When we look to kind of pair an influencer with a brand, we're looking for a lot of things like their core values, sometimes brand safety, to what their following looks like and what platforms they have followings on.
Sometimes they'll present an idea to us, and it sometimes is not always the best idea, which is not always a bad thing because you're able to work with them and explain to them, okay, this isn't gonna work because of this. And then, they give you these guidelines that you kind of have to fill in the blank. So it's a very interesting puzzle. So it really is a group effort.
So much data available now that you can really build a way to put a value on that I think that's just going to help, because now we have a way to actually quantify what that's doing for a business versus just kind of this assumption that it's going to do something.
So influencer marketing won't just be who has the biggest reach, but who are your passionate customers, and how are these customers advocating for your brand in a way that helps you tell your story more effectively.
That's it for this episode. Make sure to leave your comments below and tell us what you think, and be sure to keep an eye out for the next episode of The Business of Influence.
So that clarifies a little bit more of an understanding about the relationship that there exists between potential sponsors and the brands. Now, there's a ton of money out there that you can actually tap into. And I had a really good conversation with a friend of mine, Jürgen, yesterday. And he was saying that everybody's a potential influencer. And I do believe that's true, but I don't think that everybody wants to be an influencer. I think more people have to understand that they got to do something before they get there. And that's because everybody's a brand, but you might not know that, and you might not put yourself out there as a brand. But right now, you might not have a company logo, and you might not call yourself the such and such, but you do have a name, and that name shows up on social media. Or it doesn't show up on social media. If it doesn't show up and people look for you, then they suddenly start thinking maybe you've been blocked, maybe you've been banned, or maybe you can't be bothered. And that might work negatively against you at the very worst. And any platform, you should really get there, get your name on it, post something, and leave it. If you don't want to do anything, at least they can find you and see that you exist, and you stop it being taken by somebody else. There's nothing harder than trying to chase up afterwards to try and get somebody else to step to one side, because you've got to out SEO them and out brand them and out post them so you become more relevant. So you see my name there? Says here Dave Crane. You might think, oh, that's pretty simple, Dave. Who else is Dave Crane? Google me. I will come top of the list. But David Crane is also the name of the guy who wrote Friends. Dave Crane is also a DJ, very top DJ. That's very top DJ, a top DJ, working in Leeds in the UK. David Crane is also a guy who's creating computer games from the 80s that everybody bought and that everybody loved. They're the basics of the people I'm competing against with a name. So therefore, I don't show up under David Crane. You look under David Crane, I don't even try and keep that. I keep Dave Crane purely because that's the name I've got used to. It's my DJ name, and I feel comfortable calling myself Dave Crane as well. So you have to think about the brand that you're creating and starting off with your name. So when this is talking about something and how it relates to your clients, they have to find you, they have to relate to you, have to find evidence that you are the one that they want to play with. But you've got to vet your clients as well. I sack clients on a regular basis because the work that I'm doing for them might not be the right spin for them, or they might not be the right spin for me. Let me explain what that means. Just in case you're saying, Dave, how can you get rid of clients, especially in the pandemic? Let me explain. Sometimes when you're coaching somebody, they're uncoachable. You explain as a mentor exactly what really will work for them to get them to that point. They say, no, I prefer to do this thing. I'll go my own direction and see how that works out. Now, to like you, because you know what you're talking about. You've been there, got there. I've been on stage since I was 3. I know it sounds ridiculous. I'm 52 now. So that means the best part of almost 50 years, I've been on stages. And if you don't believe me, you can Google it. There's pictures of me as a kid working, singing on stages, not working, but singing. So my experience of audiences, my experience of engaging people and broadcasting is covering 50 years. So if you're looking at something like, for instance, Joe Biden and how long he's been in politics, that's me in the speaking and entertainment world. So do I know what I'm talking about when it comes to engaging with people? Generally, yes, I do. And if I don't know what I'm talking about, I can put a spin on it by looking at it from my own experience, and generally I come up with something that's very close to the right answer, which is why I'm doing a show like this every day rather than posting the way I used to across social media. That takes too long. This is much easier, and I can get your attention and work with you from a distance and engage you and create a relationship with the same amount of time and effort, because I'm going live, as it would do creating, curating, producing a post that might be a photo with me on it and something witty written on it that I'd put out on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram. So I've been around for a while, I've seen it. Somebody who's been around for a while and is excellent at what he's doing as well is Gary Vaynerchuk. Now I want to show you now Gary Vaynerchuk showing a video on the best way to create that relationship with your clients and your customers, and this is what you should be asking. 3 things. Now, I love your thoughts. I love your comments. We are going out a little bit early today, but the fact is, doing a show like this means you're broadcasting live early, but it's available for replay. Please share it with people so anybody who's missed it can catch it later. So here's Gary Vaynerchuk talking about clients and customers.
Zach asks, what 3 questions do you most commonly ask your clients when meeting them for the first time?
Zach, wonderful question for everybody in client services, agency life. This should be fun. You know, number 1 is, what is your KPI? What's your key performance indicator? Like, what is the thing that you want us to accomplish? Is it views? Is it sales? Is it perception? Is it press? Is it your own judgment on how you feel about the creative? How are you judging us? What are the results? And they're really separate. How are you judging us? What are the results? Are number 1A and 1B matters the most. And then really the third one would then be, what are you willing to tell me about your warts? Meaning, there's just a lot of people that are not gonna tell you about the politics that are an issue, the money that's an issue. I'm always trying to get them to be very truthful to us once I understand what the issues at hand are. So, what do you really want to accomplish? And by the way, people struggle with answering that. People struggle with answering that. Number 2, how are you gonna judge me? Sometimes they struggle with that, less. Number 3, what are the warts? Most people don't want to tell me up front. We try to sniff them out early so we can navigate them. And you know, it's a minefield to get to the finish line. Those are the 3, and they're very important questions, and trying to figure out in every situation, in absolutely every situation, in dating, in building your own business, in having clients. I really think those 3 are super fun. And by the way, they're very important equally. I think, for example, I think people that struggle with dating are spending way too much on number 3. They're so concerned about what the person's warts are, skeletons in their closets. They're not trying to figure out how they're being judged to be a good partner in that relationship or how that's gonna be scored. And so having a great balance of all 3, that's a little nugget there. Give you a little fun fact at the end of this question. It's the 33% execution of those 3 questions that may be equally as important. Yeah, that got to be a better article because I layered that last piece on.
Clients are like,
what's going on at Meerkat, Steve?
Somebody asked if they're conflicted about whether they should watch live on Meerkat or wait till the episode comes
That's a
out.
really interesting question.
Obviously both, right?
Well, of course, but what did everybody say? And how many people in there? 180?
232.
Good.
Yeah. A lot of people asking about personal brands today.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, everybody on Meerkat, get on Instagram, take a picture, ask the question, #AskGaryVee, and maybe you can be on the show.
Speaking
Suckers.
No, Kathleen says, speaking of dating, where's Nate?
Nate, yeah, where is Nate? Nate! Let's go see where Nate is. I'm taping Ask Gary V, and Kathleen is in Meerkat.
I just got a notification.
That Kathleen's curious where you are, so here you are. Why don't you give the Vayner Nation, 2 seconds of what you've been doing, Kathleen specifically, but what have you been really doing today?
Working on budgets and scopes primarily.
I think it sounds super.
Very riveting, a lot of spreadsheets, Excel.
Are you teaching young Alex the ropes?
Oh, yeah, see, we got a scope open right there.
I love it. Well, don't show the scope. All right, let's get back to the show. Thanks, Nate. Yes, I think Kathleen is in Australia. I like that Nate has secret admirers. Get in there. Oh, nice job, Stefan. D-Rock might not get his gig back with that move right there. That was a very smooth transition. All right.
Dreams do come true, someone said.
So there we are, showing Gary Vaynerchuk, the master of doing all the things related to social media. And he's been doing this for a very long time. I left in those bits at the end after he'd answered those questions about clients and the questions you should ask, because the brand he's creating is very important. You notice it kept coming up, Ask Gary V and Vayner Nation. And you notice how the guy with the glasses on was holding a phone like this, while Gary was answering the questions to a different camera. Why? He was going live on Instagram at the same time so he could get more audiences feeling they're participating. Why would he go and talk to his guest? And you see the optics as well. Behind him, he had all his staff working away, young millennials, all the people that see him as a guru and a boss. Goes around, talks to a member of his staff about dating. Why? Because it'll be of interest of millennials. It's kind of like a little soap opera he's running along the stuff he's doing. And that creates a relationship for him to go back and do some more stuff. The fact it's interactive, the fact it seems like it's fun, the fact he's on point in exactly what he does, and then suddenly disappears and talks to real people, all involves the relationship with the audience. And that turns into people that love him, and that turns into more money. Silly things like just involving people in your coffee cups can create a relationship. We want to know there's a real person there, even if Santa is looking like he should have been left on the shelves for another 3 or 4 months at least. And that's great coffee. Thank you so much for being here. I love your comments and thoughts, by the way, when we're creating brands and creating relationship. Last thing I'll say about Gary V, and I will mention it many times, is remember, did you hear him say about Ask Gary V? Why do you think he does that? Everything's questions with Gary V. Why? Because when I'm researching for this show and I'm putting together questions, I'm thinking, what have we got as a video that'll illustrate that? All the time, Gary V comes up with an answer to it. All the time. A short, bite-sized, perfect for a show like this, video of Gary V explaining what's right. Why should that be important? Because he gets his name everywhere. He gets massive views because he answers questions. And he also knows that the next stage of using your phone and using your gadgets and using Google is Google Voice. Voice search. So you're going to ask it a question and it's going to come up with an answer. And if you've got a video already planted with an answer, not a website or a blog or some PDF that somebody's got to look through, but there's a short video with an answer that will show up higher on the rankings. And that's what Gary Vee is going for. And he says you should be putting out about 60 to 100 pieces of content every day across all platforms. If you investigate that, he's got a brilliant PDF that breaks it all down. I may share that with you in a future episode. But that's what the Ask Gary V hashtag is all about. Now, I don't want in that search. I'm only interested in working with the speaking elements, with you as a speaker being able to market yourself and help you to grow your business. That's why I'm only doing stuff on this. Let Gary have that, and we have got Speak on Stage. All right, so let's look at the 5 things you need to do to re-engage your customers. This is taken from Combox, so thank you very much whoever wrote the article, and it doesn't say here, but I appreciate it. Okay. So let's look at the challenges that you may find in your business. Right now, your business is having a lot of different things to deal with because of the pandemic. Pandemic's still around. We thought it'd be gone by now, but to be honest with you, I don't think it's going to go for quite some time. That Christmas mug is not by accident. I think I'm going to be drinking out of that for quite a long time, not least because it's China, and not least because it's one of my favorite mugs. So, first of all, can your business open because people are no longer there or coming into it? How many customers are allowed into your shop? Is it viable for you to be able to do it like that? If you had a restaurant or a coffee shop where you needed like volume, or a nightclub or a bar, then that makes it more difficult. Your supply chains are being disrupted as other businesses are going out of business, so you can't give customers what they need. Customers are finding themselves with less disposable income, either because they're getting less money coming in, so they're taking a pay cut, or because they're worried about spending it and they're anxious to not do it on things that are not essential anymore. There's a low demand for certain prices, customers' services, purely because it's not as important to them. So, for instance, entertainment and gaming are more important to many people purely because they're stuck indoors and they need to feel happier. But other things that might not have been so vital, like going out and buying clothes, what are you buying clothes for? You're in your pajamas 24/7. So let's look at a couple of things that you can do to re-engage your customers after the pandemic or even during, because many people are coming out of lockdown, many people are still in it, but the mindset and the hangover of lockdown will be there for a very long time. We hopefully will see people emerging for good. In Dubai, that's the case. But also looking at New York City, New York has gone past its worst, but did you know that 30% of New Yorkers have left the city? They've permanently left. We've just decided, I don't want to live in this situation anymore. I love the cut and the thrust and the madness and the activities and the comedy clubs and the theaters and the shows and the craziness, but that can all be potentially lethal. And I saw what it was like when it hit a lot of people, and I'm on to bear in mind, by the way. So the pandemic might be cured with a vaccine, but the mindset of people with social distancing, wearing masks, not shaking hands will be there for a long time. So here's what we do. Create memorable experiences, number one. Make sure that people have a wow about who you are and what you do. It might seem like it's nothing special. Well, we should have a wow. We're very good at it. Well, the wow you used to create before is not wow enough. I used to post really cool videos on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and a bit on Facebook. Now I do a full show every day. Why? Because that's a wow. People say, why are you going every day? Well, because if I don't go for every single day, I'll leave a gap. And how much do people want to watch about speaking on stage? Me every day? At a push. Not everybody I expect to come back every day. But if you do, I'm grateful for it. But also, you can see that every day I create a brand new show. Every day I create brand new stuff for you to learn. So if you want to be an expert at it, watching every day is the first stage. Next stage is contacting me directly or going to speakonstage.com and getting yourself the modules to work through in your own time. Because the stuff I share here is more about the marketing and the mindset. It's not really about the actual nuts and bolts of being a speaker. Okay, so get the right people, hire the right people, get your staff to be up and creating relationships with your customers. If they're not doing that, then you're missing out on that relationship that you should be having. And hiring the right people does not mean necessarily that they have to be in your office. They could be anywhere around the world, but they wear the brand and they personalize your organization. And if you're a small business, especially if you're a speaker, that might be doing really effective autoresponders and having really effective websites or social media that is very inclusive for people. And also check out the buying journey. When people start off with an interest in buying your products or services and they end up spending money, my hands just disappeared behind my phone. Just arrived there, you see? La 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 la. Somewhere in that, they're going for a number of different decision-making processes. Can you look at those decision-making processes and work your way towards making them more effective and get your brand in them so you lead them by the hand from that choice to that choice to that choice to the till? Shops are brilliant at doing that. One of the best ever is IKEA. If you walk into IKEA, they take you on a journey. You walk in, they give you a basket and say hi. And they get your kids and they say, would you like to put your kids in the play area? So the kids are going to play area, not anymore, because that's just unlikely to happen. But you'd go in and then you go up the escalator. This is the one in Dubai. And then you can't go back down the escalator. The only way you can get out is when you move around through the store, and then you can see a lift going down a little bit later. And the lift is right next to the food. So the food that you buy in IKEA, you might not know it, but in Dubai it's true. IKEA in Dubai was, before pandemic, the #1 restaurant in Dubai. #1 restaurant in Dubai. Not McDonald's, not Burger King, not something posh, none of that stuff. Why? Because when people are shopping, they'd say, do you fancy something to eat? And the food was simple, it was very cheap, it was very cost effective for a family to sit down after a load of shopping. People would just make a beeline for the IKEA restaurant, even if they weren't buying. And while they're there, they had things all around that make you go, ooh, impulse buy, I think I'll get that. When you leave there, you can leave through the lift and go out again, but why bother? Why not walk all the way through the arrows on the floor, past the bedroom stuff, past the kitchen stuff, past the office stuff, past all the ideas for your front room and living room, past all the lighting, and then you can leave the building. And the smart journey for that. Do you know how they manage to upsell people? And they get people to feel good about a panic buy or an impulse buy? This is genius. They're the best I've seen at doing this, and this is a massive insight for you, and one you should really think about, especially while we're in challenge times. If you've been to IKEA and you've been shopping, especially in Dubai, then what do they have for you at the till? You're lost, aren't you? I'd love you to put your comments in here. I'll give you a few months to think about it. What do they do in IKEA? I used to go to IKEA when I used to go out. I used to buy furniture when I didn't have a house full of furniture already. What was it they do at IKEA? I'm not sure. Right, I'll tell you, put you out your misery. You go to IKEA, and what they have there is like a ice cream or a sandwich for, in Dubai, it's a dirham, which is about what? About 30 cents in US dollars terms. So a super cheap ice cream, super cheap sandwich, or a bottle of water or something. Why is it cheap when it's just about cost? I mean, literally you break even buying that because it makes you feel good as you've just bought a ton of stuff. So you bought a ton of stuff, you're eating an ice cream on the way to the car, hopefully not dropping the stuff, probably pushing a trolley like that, eating an ice cream, feeling good about life, feeling good about going to IKEA. Does that make sense? Genius, isn't it? Genius. So I love that. Okay, number 2, social media. What do your customers think? Do they know your brand? Do they see your brand? Are you popping up enough? Are you doing enough stuff to create relationships with your brand? If you're not doing that, or maybe you don't have a social media enough, now's the time to start. How else are they going to find you? They're not going to walk into a busy shopping mall and suddenly find your store there. They're not going to have word of mouth with people in the same ways they used to in a coffee shop unless they make a point of zooming and chatting with those people. But can you see how the normal impact of relationships, and like if you get a stone, you drop it into a pool, you drop the stone and suddenly there's ripples. The ripples are different now. The ripples are literally Zoom conversations, social media, WhatsApp, texting each other, and can you recommend someone who's done this? If you aren't doing any of those things, you really have to jump onto social media and start creating that relationship. Doing TV is a great way of doing it. Doing a show like this, if you know your subject well enough,